If we ask the question, what creates wealth? The answer we all share, I hope, is entrepreneurship, is human capital, it is human capital investment. What China is doing is connecting entrepreneurship and ideas with capital in a way which no other society is doing. That's what I see happening in China. A powerful connectivity between all the ingredients, all the prerequisites for prosperity and productivity. You've all heard of the Great Wall of China. Some of you might have climbed it. Well, I want to add this idea of a green wall. A wall-to-wall investment. Vehicles for biofuels, solar, wind, electric cars, just to name a few. I had the privilege, Jeff, of being at ACYA in Singapore a few months ago. And it was interesting, one of the stories that was told was how in 1876, one American told another American that the telephone had no inherent value, that it was useless. In my view, the next telephone will come from China. The next big thing will come from China. I hope it comes from Australia. I hope it comes from Queensland. I hope it comes from St Lucia. I hope it comes from the University of Queensland. I hope it comes from one of you. I'm not so sure if it will. Why? Because the paradigm of thinking in today's China is very different to the paradigm of thinking in our country. That's why. Facebook and Twitter are just as much the tools of young Chinese as they are of all of you, and indeed of myself. I hope you're all following me on Facebook and Twitter. If you don't, log on. Facebook, Twitter, they are the tools of young Chinese just as they are of our young people. I want to state very clearly that I believe, personally, that China's rise will be positive for the region, for the world, and of course, for our nation. I am not, at the same time, a panda hugger. I love pandas, I love the Chinese, my mum is a Chinese, I love Chinese, I love all Chinese. But I'm not a panda hugger. Because China is not an imperfect nation. Just like every other country on the face of the planet is not an imperfect nation. But I am a China watcher, and I am unequivocally a China admirer. Clearly, the rise of one of the poorest countries on earth to become the world's second largest economy today, to almost certainly the world's largest in another 25, 30 years, if not in another 10 years, will cause angst and necessary adjustments. The most obvious angst and adjustments will come from the US. With economic clout goes strategic clout. The next China will not follow the unusual status of Japan in the 20th century, where Japan, as the world's second largest economy and power, merely was a strategic client of the first economic power in the world. China will certainly not emulate this formula of great power relationship. So we all will exist in a world of big powers, including one big new power, China. And for myself, as a legislator, as a citizen of this country and of the Asia-Pacific region, I don't see challenges and problems, but I see vast opportunities and enormous options. They are endless. That is why countries like our country and people like each and every one of you need to be alert, informed, skilled, empowered, knowledgeable, and not only just bilingual, but trilingual. We must never be defensive nor divisive. We must be, as a people, engaged, outgoing, and connected. My wife is Vietnamese. My mum is Chinese. I have a 3.5-year-old. My little 3.5-year-old speaks nearly perfect English. He speaks nearly perfect Vietnamese. He speaks nearly perfect Putonghua. And he speaks nearly perfect Dongdunghua. He is not trilingual, he is quadrilingual. Imagine the world at its feet. Imagine the opportunities for a 3.5-year-old currently, as my son Ryan is, compared to another 3.5-year-old that grows up in this country, St Lucia, in Coringa, in Inverville, but does not have those 4 languages at his fingertips, at their fingertips. That, my friends, is empowerment. Let me say something about specifically the Australia-China relationship. This is a diplomatic relationship that, of course, all of you would know began 30 years ago and is today probably Australia's highest profile bilateral tie, if not the second largest, obviously behind the US. If we look back to 1980, our two-way trade in goods and services with China was just under $1 billion, or 2% of our total trade. Today, it's over $80 billion, or 15%. There is mutual benefit in our relationship with China: raw materials, energy security, and diversity. Since 2008, the new Australian government under Prime Minister Rudd has approved 100 Chinese investment proposals to acquire Australian businesses, and 96 were approved unconditionally. For us, China is ranked 15th as a destination of investment. In a country of 21 million people, people of Chinese background number close to 700,000, and Chinese is the second most commonly spoken language after English. 1/4 of all international student enrolments in Australia is Chinese, and 130,000 students from China study here, and perhaps some of them are in the audience. A free trade agreement was initiated by the former government, the former Howard government, and that's still under negotiation, and that is continuing the trend of interlocking our economies. Difficult, painful, but these negotiations are vital to liberalising the Chinese economy and deepening our engagement with them. Australians must remember that engaging and trading and harmonising with a population 60 times our size is only good for us. Can only be good for us. Indeed, in the 100 years to come, it will be a case of meaningful economic coexistence. The gravitational pull of China will be irresistible. That is why the Defence White Paper of the current Australian government has a lot to answer for. The recent white paper by the Rudd government, which describes the remote but plausible prospect of confrontation between Australia and a rising Asian power, is totally counterproductive. Naturally, the country is not mentioned, but take your pick from Indonesia, Japan, India, South Korea, Vietnam, or China. The Defence White Paper of the Rudd government goes on to outline the kind of military capability Australia might need to respond to some remote threat and potential conflict. This is what the rise of China is doing to the governing mindset of this country and other states. It is wrong, it is counterproductive, and it must stop. It is policy weakness, and it is intellectual policy bankruptcy. It misses the window to position Australia for the sheer abundance of synergies that will be on offer to our entrepreneurs and our investors. Can I end my remarks, Jeff, by saying that, in conclusion, Australia's security in the 21st century lies in Asia, not from Asia. And let me assure all of you that as one of the younger members of the Federal Parliament, my focus will continue to be on plugging Australia into people, into opportunities, and into every kind of facet of Chinese life and business, so that we can not only make our country stronger, but indeed make a contribution to developing the opportunities for the great people that are China. Thank you very much.